Welcome to another episode of the E3 with Larry Ice video series. We're in our study of Galatians, and this time we move into chapter 3, part 1, the evil eye. Galatians 3, 1 through 6 reads this way. You foolish Galatians, who has bewitched you, before whose eyes Jesus Christ was publicly portrayed as crucified? This is the only thing I want to find out from you. Did you receive the Spirit by works of the law or by hearing with faith? Are you so foolish? Having begun by the Spirit, are you now being perfected by the flesh? Did you suffer so many things in vain, if indeed it was in vain? So then, does he who provides you with the Spirit and works miracles among you do it by works of the law or by hearing with faith? Galatians 3:1 does not begin with the word you, as I rendered it here when I read the New American Standard Translation. It does not begin with the word you. The King James actually has it right here. The verse begins with, "O foolish Galatians." The initial word in Greek here is the character omega, just one single Greek character, omega. O foolish Galatians. I'm pointing this out because using omega in this way indicates that what's coming is highly emotionally charged. Paul is flabbergasted. He's flummoxed. He's aghast, amazed, and appalled. Paul is very emotional about what's going on in Galatia. As we've seen in our study to this point, Jewish religionists had surreptitiously come into the Galatian Christian fellowship. They were spies sent to observe the freedom in which these Gentile believers were living and to insinuate that the Galatians were not really saved unless they observed certain Jewish religious rules and rituals. Paul had taught them the pure gospel. He told them of the crucifixion, death, burial, and resurrection of the Lord Jesus Christ. He told them that faith in the Lord Jesus was their hope of righteousness. He told them that salvation was the gift of God and did not come about by works. Consequently, it really upset him to learn that some in the fellowship had been deceived by these religious zealots. In their defense, such attacks on the true gospel are often difficult to notice at first. As my friend the late John Frone used to say, legalism is subtle and insidious, and every bit of it must be rooted out completely. He's in good company. Later in this epistle, Paul will tell the Galatians essentially the same thing. In Galatians 5:9, he says, a little leaven leavens the whole lump of dough. I mean, think about it. How much yeast do you actually use if you bake bread? Very little, but the whole loaf of bread is changed. In this emotionally charged state, Paul asks, who has bewitched you? Now, the Greek here literally means who gave you the evil eye. Bewitched is a good way to communicate this, or charmed. These religious zealots had charmed their way into the fellowship of believers and led them astray by casting an evil eye on them, the way casting an evil eye on the way the Galatians related to God. And we often see this in churches today. In fact, I touched on it in an earlier segment of this study. There are some who look askance at those who live in the freedom of the pure gospel. You kind of get the side eye a little bit. Many who would agree that salvation is the gracious gift of God would consider heretical the idea that meritorious works do not garner more favor from God and are not required for ongoing acceptance by him. Rarely is this stated in so many words, but it's subtly insinuated into our minds by the tone of their conversation and the expressions on their faces. This subtlety is what makes it so insidious. Many are deceived into questioning their salvation, and that is enough to make you emotionally charged. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. We'll see you again real soon.